Welcome back to the Paranormal State, Washington, and UFO UAP. With Makāula Nakae, a lifelong experiencer and ET contactee since 1990. Today's episode: Sasquatch, Bigfoot. Washington State is widely considered the undisputed capital of Sasquatch, Bigfoot lore, and modern sightings in North America. According to data tracked by organizations like the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, BFRO, Washington consistently logs more documented Sasquatch encounters than any other state, deeply embedding the legend into the culture, geography, and history of the Pacific Northwest. Historical roots: the 1924 Ape Canyon incident. While indigenous oral histories across the Pacific Northwest have long spoken of giant forest-dwelling wild men, modern American Sasquatch lore was officially born on the rugged, volcanic slopes of Mount St. Helens in July 1924. It stands as the most famous, violent, and thoroughly documented early encounter in cryptozoology. The stage was set when a group of 5 gold prospectors, led by Fred Beck, along with Marion Smith, Roy Smith, Gabe Lefkoff, and John Peterson, ventured deep into the Cascade Wilderness. They were searching for a legendary lost gold deposit near the base of Mount St. Helens. They established a remote cabin in a steep, isolated gorge situated just southeast of the volcano. Little did they know, this remote pocket of the Pacific Northwest was about to become the epicenter of a terrifying nocturnal confrontation. The siege, the Mountain Devil's attack. The harrowing events of July 1924 quickly escalated from unsettling signs to an all-out violent siege. Tensions began when some of the miners reported seeing strange, massive humanoids near the tree line, and even fired shots at one of the creatures earlier in the week, allegedly hitting it and sending it tumbling into the ravine. The retaliation was swift and terrifying. Late at night, the miners found themselves surrounded by several large, bipedal, ape-like figures, which the media and locals quickly dubbed mountain devils. The creatures initiated a coordinated assault, hurling massive boulders down the steep canyon walls. The heavy stones battered the roof and shattered the exterior of the crude log cabin. The siege grew even more intimate and horrifying when massive, hairy hands reached through the gaps between the cabin's rough logs, clawing at tools, attempting to pry open the door, and leaving the terrified men huddled inside in pitch darkness. As dawn broke and the barge finally ceased, the exhausted and traumatized miners made a desperate decision. Packing only what they could carry, they fled down the canyon, abandoning their valuable gold claim, tools, and camp supplies behind. When they reached civilization and reported the attack to local forest rangers and law enforcement, the story erupted. Newspapers across the country picked up the sensational account of miners besieged by wild ape men on the slopes of Mount St. Helens. The Ape Canyon incident did more than just frighten a group of prospectors. It permanently branded Washington State as the historic heartland of Sasquatch history, bridging ancient indigenous oral traditions with a modern American monster mythos. Major Washington hotspots: the Olympic Peninsula. With millions of acres of dense temperate rainforests, rugged mountain ranges, and isolated river valleys, Washington State features several primary hotspots for reported activity. Among them, the Olympic Peninsula stands out as the undisputed crown jewel of modern Sasquatch research. Stretching from the rugged timberlands around Forks down to the ancient cedar forests of Lake Quinault, the peninsula's geography creates an ideal, nearly impenetrable sanctuary for unverified large wildlife. The Olympic Peninsula is home to vast tracts of temperate rainforest, where towering Sitka spruce, Douglas firs, and western hemlocks create an immense multi-layered canopy. The thick understory of ferns, mosses, and fallen timber makes large swaths of the interior virtually impassable to humans, providing an endless expanse of undisturbed habitat. Hemmed in by the Pacific Ocean to the west, the Strait of Juan de Fuca to the north, Puget Sound to the east, and the jagged, glacier-carved peaks of the Olympic Mountains in the center, the peninsula acts as a natural ecological island. River valleys such as the Hoh, Quileute, and Quinault serve as primary thoroughfares and food sources. Because these river systems feature abundant salmon runs, lush vegetation, and mild maritime-influenced climates, they are frequent zones of convergence for wildlife. Local river guides, long-haul loggers, hikers, and indigenous residents have historically logged a disproportionately high number of reports across the peninsula. These accounts routinely feature classic anomalous encounters. Massive bipedal silhouettes crossing logging roads at dusk, distinct structural tree breaks, unidentifiable vocalizations echoing across mist-shrouded canyons, and massive, barefoot tracks discovered deep in backcountry trails far from human habitation. The Olympic Peninsula remains a living frontier, where the dense wilderness preserves the mystery, keeping Washington locked in as a premier hotspot for high strangeness and Sasquatch research. Major Washington hotspots. The South Cascades and Mount Rainier. If the Olympic Peninsula is the damp, moss-draped sanctuary of Sasquatch lore, the South Cascades, anchored by the towering presence of Mount Rainier, is its volcanic stronghold. Specifically encompassing Pierce and Skamania counties, this region regularly logs some of the highest and most consistent concentrations of Bigfoot sightings in the entire United States. Characterized by sheer elevation changes, deep glacial river valleys, and hundreds of square miles of trackless federal forest land, this rugged stretch of Washington is a crucible for high strangeness. Within this massive mountain sweep, certain microregions have earned legendary status among field researchers due to the sheer volume and persistence of eyewitness accounts. Situated on the western approaches to Mount Rainier, these semi-rural, heavily timbered foothills serve as a transition zone where human civilization bumps directly up against deep wilderness. Residents and campers near Alder Lake and the Mashel River have frequently reported massive, bipedal figures crossing rural highways or investigating rural property lines under the cover of darkness. Located in Skamania County south of Mount St. Helens, the Dark Divide is one of the largest tracts of roadless wilderness remaining in the Cascade Range. Its sheer isolation, devoid of paved roads for miles and choked with jagged ridges, steep canyons, and dense hemlock forests, makes it an ideal, virtually undisturbed refuge for large, elusive fauna. Encounters in the South Cascades are rarely just visual. Campers, hunters, and backcountry hikers in Pierce and Skamania counties frequently report a distinct, unsettling auditory footprint. Witnesses often describe hearing terrifying, bass-heavy vocalizations that defy standard wildlife identification, descending screams, roars, or chest-thumping vocalizations that reverberate across deep mountain valleys and rattle tent walls. A classic staple of modern Sasquatch field research, rhythmic echoing, would knocks sounding like heavy timber striking a tree trunk with immense force, are frequently logged by researchers setting up audio recorders in the foothills of Rainier and the Dark Divide, often interpreted as a territorial or communicative signaling system. The geography of the South Cascades creates a natural highway for movement. Situated between Mount Rainier, Mount Adams, and Mount St. Helens, the heavily forested ridges and subalpine meadows support massive populations of elk, deer, and black bear. Because the region experiences heavy winter snowpacks, wildlife, and whatever apex predators or unclassified hominids inhabit these deep woods, must navigate seasonal migration corridors along river basins like the Cowlitz and Cispus. These natural bottlenecks place humans and anomalous phenomena on a collision course, ensuring that the South Cascades remain an active, unpredictable frontier for Bigfoot history. Major Washington hotspots, Whatcom County and the Lummi Reservation. Moving north toward the Canadian border, the rugged terrain of Whatcom County and the coastal ancestral lands of the Lummi Nation near Bellingham represent another major epicenter of historical Sasquatch activity. During the massive national surge in Bigfoot interest throughout the 1970s, Whatcom County experienced an unprecedented spike in activity. Over 100 distinct reports flooded out of the Lummi Nation and surrounding rural areas in a remarkably short time frame. Notably, these accounts were not limited to hikers or campers. Multiple local police officers and tribal members logged face-to-face encounters with giant, bipedal figures moving through the dense coastal brush and timber. Long before modern cryptozoology, Coast Salish oral histories detailed the Semequis, a powerful giant forest being associated with both physical presence and spiritual dimensions. Embracing both ancient folklore and modern local culture, Whatcom County leaned heavily into the legend. Following the precedent set by Skamania County, Whatcom County officially passed a resolution number 92043, establishing a Sasquatch protection and refuge area, ensuring that the fabled cryptid remains officially protected within its borders. Long before cryptozoology became a mainstream cultural phenomenon, the local government in Skamania County, Washington, boldly took the legendary wild man of the woods out of campfire folklore and enshrined him directly into the official municipal legal code, the 1969 felony ordinance. The legislative action was born out of a real-world flashpoint at the close of the 1960s. Amid a massive regional wave of reported sightings and rising public tension across the Cascade foothills, local officials grew genuinely concerned. They feared that trigger-happy hunters, armed vigilantes, or panicked prospectors sweeping into the deep timberlands might mistake a massive, unclassified creature or a fellow human being for a monster, sparking a violent and tragic confrontation. In 1969, the Skamania County Board of Commissioners took decisive, highly unusual action. They passed a formal county ordinance making the malicious molestation, injury, or killing of a Sasquatch a felony offense. Violating the law carried a severe penalty of up to a $10,000 fine, a year in county jail, or both. The 1991 Sanctuary Update. As decades rolled on and the legal novelty transformed from a panicked defensive measure into a beloved piece of Pacific Northwest heritage, the county revisited the statute. In 1991, recognizing changing cultural attitudes and turning the law into an official celebration of regional lore, the county updated the ordinance. The penalty was adjusted from a strict felony down to a misdemeanor, while the legal text was expanded to officially declare Skamania County an official sanctuary and refuge for the creature, cementing its status as a permanent, legally protected resident of the Cascade Wilderness. Whether viewed through the lens of strict cryptozoology, ancient indigenous oral traditions, or as an elusive, undiscovered biological species thriving within the state's millions of acres of temperate rainforests and volcanic mountain ranges, Sasquatch is woven permanently into the cultural and historical fabric of Washington state. The legislative path blazed by Skamania County did much more than protect a mythical creature. It set a profound cultural precedent. By embedding a cryptid into municipal government codes, local leaders bridged the gap between campfire folklore and institutional recognition, showing how modern mythology can shape real-world community identity and local governance. Today, Washington proudly leans into its undisputed status as the heartland of Bigfoot culture. Across the evergreen corridors of the state, rural gift shops, roadside stops, and small town squares proudly display intricate, chainsaw-carved wooden statues of Sasquatch, turning local lore into vibrant community landmarks. Regional tourism boards actively celebrate the legacy, hosting annual Bigfoot festivals that draw enthusiasts, researchers, and curious travelers from across the country. Beyond the commercial novelty, serious scientific and amateur field researchers continue to deploy advanced acoustic sensors, thermal imaging cameras, and motion-activated traps deep within remote strongholds like the Dark Divide, treating the mystery as an active, ongoing scientific inquiry. Modern eyewitness reports, ongoing fieldwork, and regional logs prove definitively that the phenomenon of Sasquatch is far from a relic of the past or faded 20th century fad. Across Washington state, and particularly within its dense, mist-shrouded wilderness corridors, encounters continue to be logged year after year by experienced hikers, long-haul drivers, and rural residents. The evergreen forests of the Pacific Northwest continue to harbor the untamed, enduring mystery of the wild man of the woods, ensuring that the legend remains as vital today as it was a century ago. While historic milestones like the 1924 Ape Canyon Siege established the baseline mythos of the Pacific Northwest, contemporary witnesses continue to log the exact same behavioral signatures in the exact same isolated geographic pockets. The phenomenon has not faded, rather it persists with a striking consistency. Modern sightings frequently occur along the fragile boundary where deep untamed timber intersects with human infrastructure. Field research organizations regularly document contemporary accounts from motorists driving through the dense timberlands of the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest. Drivers report massive bipedal silhouettes stepping across Forest Service roads at dusk or encounter unexplained roadblocks where heavy debris, fallen timber, and massive boulders have been deliberately rolled across asphalt paths to obstruct traffic. Beyond visual sightings, dedicated regional investigators such as specialized groups like PNW Bigfoot Search continue to unearth physical anomalies that defy easy explanation. Researchers document freshly pressed, oversized footprints featuring complex anatomical details such as distinct dermal ridges, fingerprints, toe ridges, and mid-dorsal flexes, discovered in remote mud banks near pristine river basins like the Little White Salmon River. These physical traces suggest a heavy bipedal creature navigating terrain virtually impassable to ordinary humans. When examining the geographical distribution of cryptid encounters across North America, data compiled over decades by organizations like the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, BFRO, consistently point to a single undisputed champion, Washington State. Washington ranks as the #1 state in the United States for total credible Sasquatch reports, outpacing traditional hotspots like California, Oregon, and Ohio. This statistical dominance is driven primarily by specific counties such as Pierce, Skamania, Snohomish, and King. These jurisdictions encompass millions of acres of protected federal Forest Service land, impenetrable old-growth timber stands, and treacherous volcanic mountain topography, including Mount Rainier, Mount Adams, and Glacier Peak. This vast, rugged wilderness provides an uncompromised, virtually limitless sanctuary, where an elusive entity can roam entirely undetected by mainstream civilization. Rather than fading into extinction with the relentless advance of logging roads, suburban sprawl, and modern technology, contemporary reports prove a startling reality. These accounts demonstrate that these creatures, whether categorized as an undiscovered biological megafauna or an elusive high-strangeness intelligence, coexist quietly alongside human expansion. By maintaining a stealthy, nocturnal presence just beyond the edge of our highways and backyards, they keep the ancient legend intensely, vividly alive in the modern era. Bigfoot and Sasquatch in pop culture. From a local Pacific Northwest folklore secret into a global pop culture icon, Bigfoot, or Sasquatch, occupies a unique space in modern entertainment. No longer confined to blurry campfire stories or obscure cryptozoology books, the wild man of the woods has evolved into a multi-billion-dollar fixture across film, television, advertising, and internet culture. Pop culture's obsession with Bigfoot was single-handedly ignited on October 20th, 1967, when Roger Patterson and Robert Gimlin filmed a purported female Sasquatch walking casually across a gravel bar along Bluff Creek in Northern California. The grainy 59-second footage featuring the iconic, lumbering stride and a backward glance over the shoulder became the universal visual template for Bigfoot across the globe. The film blasted Sasquatch out of regional lore and straight into mainstream consciousness, sparking a wave of documentaries, paperback books, and late-night television debates that cemented the creature in the global imagination. Hollywood quickly seized upon the mythos, adapting the creature into nearly every conceivable cinematic genre. The horror and thriller genre. Films like Abominable, 2006, Exists, 2014, directed by Eduardo Sanchez, and Primal Rage, 2018, transformed Sasquatch from a gentle giant into a terrifying, aggressive apex predator stalking unsuspecting campers. Family and comedy. On the flip side, Hollywood softened the monster into a lovable or misunderstood character. The 1987 family classic Harry and the Hendersons, starring John Lithgow and featuring makeup by Rick Baker, won an Academy Award and humanized the creature for an entire generation. Animated films like Missing Link, 2019, and Abominable, 2019 continued this friendly cinematic trend. Reality TV mania, the 2000s and 2010s, ushered in a massive reality television boom dedicated to tracking the cryptid. Shows like Animal Planet's Finding Bigfoot turned investigators Matt Moneymaker, Cliff Barackman, Renee Holland, and Bobo Fay into pop culture celebrities, bringing squishing and thermal imaging cameras into living rooms worldwide. Marketers soon realized that the ultimate symbol of elusiveness and wilderness made for a brilliant brand mascot. Jack Link's Beef Jerky. The long-running iconic Messin' with Sasquatch commercial campaign featured a prank-loving Bigfoot tormenting unsuspecting campers, turning the cryptid into a humorous household staple. The Evergreen State branding. Locally and nationally, companies leveraged the creature's mysterious aura to sell everything from craft beer and outdoor gear to local tourism packages, making Bigfoot the unofficial mascot of the Pacific Northwest. In the digital age, Sasquatch transcended traditional media to become a staple of internet culture. The blurry, out-of-focus photograph has become a universal internet punchline, representing anything elusive or hard to prove. My girlfriend goes to another school. She's like Bigfoot. Subreddits like our Bigfoot, viral TikTok-filled audio breakdowns, and YouTube documentary channels keep the grassroots pop culture engine running 24/7, proving that humanity's fascination with the unknown is stronger than ever. Sasquatch as an art form in Washington State. In Washington State, Sasquatch transcends being a mere cryptozoological curiosity or campfire tale. It is a vibrant, physical medium for artistic expression. Local sculptors, muralists, and woodworkers have embraced the wild man of the woods, turning the legend into a defining pillar of Pacific Northwest regional art. Washington's landscape is dotted with striking, large-scale public art pieces that honor the state's unofficial mascot. Created in 1982 by renowned Pacific Northwest artist Richard Baer, this whimsical, permanent public sculpture sits in Seattle's University Playground at NE 50th Street and 9th Ave. Crafted from cast aluminum, wood, and Corten steel, it depicts a full-length Sasquatch, playfully shoving against a tilted house frame. It stands as a classic piece of quirky civic folk art. Towering 18 feet tall and weighing 1,500 pounds, this multi-dimensional steel sculpture was forged by local artist N. Colville tribe member Smoker Marchard. Perched atop DeSoto Pass, the piece features a rotating arm that swings in the wind, blending modern metalwork with indigenous and regional folklore. Across the state's scenic byways, towns like Gold Bar, near the filming sites of Harry and the Hendersons, and Blaine proudly host massive, hyper-detailed community statues that double as beloved tourist photo ops and local monuments. Perhaps the most ubiquitous form of Bigfoot art in Washington is the craft of chainsaw carving, deeply tied to the state's rich logging and timber history. Traveling and local wood artists utilize chainsaws, grinders, and chisels to carve dynamic figures out of massive cedar and Douglas fir logs. Ranging from stoic, protective guardians watching over mountain cabins to the iconic mid-stride pose inspired by the Patterson-Gimlin film, these wooden statues line rural highways, driveways, and forest town gift shops, serving as tactile reminders of the untamed wilderness. The cryptid has also found its way onto the walls of the state's urban centers through massive community-driven public art initiatives. The 1,000 Sasquatch Heads Project. Beloved Seattle muralist Henry embarked on a massive regional public art campaign to paint 1,000 distinct Sasquatch heads on garage doors, residential homes, and commercial walls across the Pacific Northwest. Rather than portraying the creature as a terrifying monster, these vibrant murals use a friendly, stylized Sasquatch face as a playful emblem of regional pride, joy, and community togetherness. Sasquatch, biological animal, extraterrestrial, or interdimensional being. When moving beyond standard flesh and blood cryptozoology, the conversation surrounding Sasquatch shifts into the realm of high strangeness. For decades, researchers, experiences, and indigenous elders have wrestled with a profound question. Is Bigfoot a rare, undiscovered ape hiding in the temperate rainforests, or is it something far stranger? Exploring this phenomenon reveals three leading theories that attempt to decode what, or who, is walking through Washington's deep timber. This is the traditional hypothesis embraced by mainstream cryptozoologists and field researchers. Sasquatch is a biological terrestrial megafauna, likely a surviving relict hominid such as a modern descendant of Gigantopithecus, or an uncatalogued species of bipedal ape that migrated across the ancient Bering Land Bridge. Proponents point to physical footprints with dermal ridges, hair samples yielding unknown mammalian DNA profiles, vocalizations, and the sheer biological necessity of a breeding population hiding within millions of acres of old-growth forest. Critics point out that, despite decades of intensive logging, trail cam usage, and backcountry exploration, no definitive body, skeleton, or fossil has ever been formally entered into the scientific record. Many UFO researchers and high strangeness experiences note a persistent, undeniable overlap between lights in the sky and footprints in the mud. Sasquatch is not native to Earth's evolutionary tree, but is an engineered caretaker, scout, or bioform deployed by an extraterrestrial intelligence to monitor remote wilderness areas, sensitive nuclear infrastructure, or tectonic fault lines. Countless regional accounts link UFO sightings with immediate localized Bigfoot activity. Witnesses frequently report luminous orbs, silent hovering craft, or sudden flashes of light occurring right before or during an encounter with a wild man. In this view, the creature's elusive nature isn't just stealth. It is advanced technological cloaking, or biological adaptation, designed to operate unseen alongside visiting intelligence crafts. Popularized by pioneering investigators like John Keel and Jacques Vallée, this theory suggests that Sasquatch belongs to a spectrum of reality beyond our standard 3 dimensions. Bigfoot is an interdimensional or consciousness-based entity that slips between our physical reality and an unseen realm. The theory is fueled by the baffling, well-documented tendency of Sasquatch tracks to simply stop mid-trail in the middle of a snowfield or clearing, with no physical way the creature could have left without taking flight or dematerializing. Witnesses also report sudden, paralyzing waves of pure dread, telepathic communication, or an oppressive silence, the Oz factor immediately preceding an encounter. This perspective aligns closely with many ancient Coast Salish and Native American oral traditions, which describe the Senequas or forest giants as shapeshifters, capable of moving between the physical world and the spirit realm at will. Whether Sasquatch is an elusive primate dodging extinction in the Olympic Peninsula, an extraterrestrial scout, or a traveler sliding between dimensions, the mystery persists because it defies easy categorization. Perhaps the truth is not that we have to choose just one theory, but that the phenomenon itself deliberately refuses to be boxed in by human science. As detailed in my book, Cosmic Awakening Part 3, The First Contact, Beyond CE5, my journey into the anomalous began long before standard field research, rooted in direct, personal contact. Following a transformative visit to Mount Shasta, I found myself in Seattle during a period marked by a heightened frequency of profound encounters. Among these, one experience stands completely apart: my contact with a female Sasquatch possessing a radiant golden mane. This encounter did not occur out in the physical timberlands, nor did it manifest as a shadowy figure crossing a Forest Service road. Instead, the contact took place entirely within my inner consciousness platform, what I often refer to as the window of consciousness. During this experience, my state of awareness was intensely sharp and fully awake. Without warning or auditory preamble, she projected her image directly into my awareness. She appeared unmistakably female, draped in a magnificent thick coat of shimmering golden hair that immediately brought to mind the iconic appearance of a Star Wars Wookiee, though illuminated with a warm golden-hued radiance. What made the encounter truly staggering, however, was the revelation of her connection to advanced technology. During our interaction, she communicated the nature of the craft she utilized. Rather than explaining it through traditional dialogue, she accessed a visual reference within my own memory vault. Utilizing a conceptual poster I had previously encountered that cataloged various types of reported UFOs in 3D model representations. From this mental catalog, she reached into my memory and deliberately selected one specific design: a stacked, round, cake-shaped craft. The mode of communication itself defied human conventions. It was not telepathy in the traditional sense. No words formed in earthly languages, and there was no binary mental chatter. Instead, it was an entirely holographic visual transmission, coupled with metacognitive telepathic language. Whole concepts, images, and emotional matrices were downloaded instantaneously as cohesive, living streams of information. This profound experience permanently shifted my understanding of the phenomenon. It bridges the gap between ancient folklore and cosmic reality, suggesting that the wild man of the woods is not merely a biological ape hiding in the Pacific Northwest rainforests, but an intelligence intimately tied to higher dimensions, consciousness, and the broader cosmic tapestry. To be continued. Watch and listen. Watch the cinematic video trailer. Listen to the full podcast now. Explore the archived Cosmic Awakening Volume 1, 1991, Peru, Journey into the Unknown. Sacred Valley of the Incas. Volume 2, Ascension 2012, The Golden Alchemy. Part 3, The First Contact and the Paranormal State. Join the journey. New episodes drop periodically. Each chapter delivers a tight, hyper-focused 10 to 30-minute exploration into the evolution of ufology, perfect for your daily plunge into decoding hidden messages from outer space, designed to raise awareness and foster human evolution. Subscribe to support your inner development. Thumbs up to help push our channel through the algorithm. Comment below. Share your thoughts on today's episode.